Welcome to Triumph Against Odds. My name still remains Obidike Okafor, and with me today, I have somebody who I would describe as the personification of resilience. If resilience was a human being, trust me, it will be him. But if you want to know more, then you just have to watch this. It's nice to have you on Triumph Against Odds. How are you doing?
Doing very well, Obi. Thanks. It's good to be here with you.
And yes, we're live in Abuja.
Yes.
And I'm hoping that this will mean maybe we can move Triumph Against Odds to Abuja sometime so that I can also talk to some of the amazing people in this side of town.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's, set the ball rolling. So in business, they've been described as a man who has, each time you fall, you get up. Each time you fall, you get up. So that resilience of each time you fall, you get up, what from your childhood or from your growing life, what has, been that thing that has driven that resilience?
The closest thing I think is that I had a deeply military background, which is a bit of a never say die background.
Okay.
Maybe that's responsible for it. So even before my own direct experience, I grew up in a military household. My father was a military man and served his entire life in the military as an officer. And so I grew up in a military household. And then personally also, I went to Nigerian military school, Zaria, which there's a lot of sort of family heritage tied to the school. My father went there, my uncle went there, my brother went there. And NMS is a very tough institution. And it really, there are elements of resilience that came through in making it through NMS. It's very regimented, very disciplined, required a lot of stamina. You ran cross-country races, even at that age. Spent time actually doing a bush camp in the bush, and so there was a lot of I guess elements that would have led to resilience. So that's the only thing I can really think of. Yeah.
So you've built companies across tech, advertising, and education. What's a small, almost trivial habit or quirk you have that actually fuels your leadership style?
I don't know if it's a quirk. I mean, I think it's there's a real desire there to see. I think primarily Nigeria, but secondarily, Africa, and I don't want to sound romantic or anything, but the black race and but primarily Nigeria. There's a desire to really see this country move forward. And so, and I think it's not just unique to me. I think many entrepreneurs feel this also to various degrees. It's not just about, financial independence, or there's a big part of it that or it's not even just about wanting your family to be proud of you or your community to be proud of you. There are many things that make somebody be an entrepreneur and do these things. But to some degree also is that we have to build this country. I think that's one of the things that really motivates me.
Okay, so with uLesson now thriving and MIVA Open University launched, do you feel you are at a peak, or is this just another crossroads in your entrepreneurial journey?
So yes, MIVA is doing incredibly well, and uLesson is growing nicely. So firstly, as a business, before I talk about personally, as a business, MIVA is just really taking off. It's not even anywhere near its peak. I think that's many years away with the way it's performing. We've just passed we're approaching 20,000 students, which is, I think, the fastest growing tertiary institution in the history of this country. And but there are open universities. The Open University of China, I think, is about 2 million students. The Indira Gandhi Open University of India, I think, is about 3 million students. So MIVA has a long way to go. We have aspirations to be a 1 million person institution. For me personally, I don't know, Obi, if it's that I'm peaking. I know my interests are changing.
Okay. So can we say that you're at the crossroads? Or?
Very much so. Very much so. The past year has been defined by a lot of thinking and a lot of meditating, a lot of praying and thinking, what next? Because MIVA, and I'm so glad, just the privilege of working with the colleagues and all the people I've worked with, the incredible thing that we've built. But I personally have been CEO now of that company for 7.5 years. And this is actually my longest CEO-ship.
Wow.
Yes, Konga was about 5 years, 5.5. Emotion was about 5 years also. So this is 7.5. And so naturally you start to ask, what next?
What next? From alarina.com to iNollywood, you launched ahead of your time. Can you take us to a moment when it all seemed like the dream was slipping away? And how did you pull through?
So there are two instances that I can speak transparently about where it genuinely felt like that.
Okay.
The first I've talked about to some degree. The second, you'll be the first one I'll be talking to about it. So the first was of course Konga, where we were doing really well. Everybody was excited about the business. And then in 2015, we got hit with that devaluation, and Nigeria went through a macroeconomic earthquake. And many businesses didn't survive. I'm grateful that the Konga brand survives in some way in the custody of Leo Staneke, but it to see it slip out of my hands because that version that was run by me, funded by the investors I had, they didn't want to continue because of the macroeconomic earthquake. So that was hard. So the brand continued, and I think personally I took a couple of years to just kind of regroup, and that was a very important thing. And there's all kinds of strategies for regrouping and tactics for finding your balance again, and we can talk about that if you want. But then more recently, there was an instance where I felt like it's happening again. So 2023, after this administration got sworn in, they put through a raft of reforms that we all know what the macroeconomic implications were. And to be completely honest, I support each and every one of those reforms. But I think this time, first of all, the business is a much more robust business. Education is it's the strangest thing will be, on the one hand, you have a lot of impact, and on the other hand, on the flip side, it's marked, and it's not just MIVA or uLesson. This is primary, secondary schools, private brick and mortar universities. The gross margins are very good. The net margins are good. The demand is very strong. The demand is inelastic. It's a very strong businesses, and so we weathered it better. But our story was a bit peculiar. At the time that the reforms happened, we had uLesson, which is primary and secondary school business.
Yes.
And so we had just come out of COVID. So the urgency around supplementary edtech, uLesson is a child is in a school and then the parents buy it for use almost after. It's like a supplement after school. So because of COVID, the supplemental demand that we saw that was crazy, it cooled down. It cooled down. And then we got hit with the reforms. And so discretionary income, the amount of money a family has to spend on things that are not critical, went down. And so supplementary education. So those two were demand cool down. It was still growing, but there was a massive cool down. And so I thought, oh gosh, this is happening again. The same 2015 thing is happening again. But and I think this was a bit divine, that same year we received the license from the Nigerian Universities Commission to launch MIVA.
Oh, wow.
Yes. And so I think it was in anticipation of the impact of the reforms, and then of course our colleagues and flexible colleagues and investors that just really believed in us, and we're much more flexible, and I don't want to say pivoted because uLesson is still around, but we added on MIVA.
Okay.
And that's how we made it through those periods where you feel like, oh gosh, this is happening again. The first time I wasn't so lucky. This time, good business model. We made it through, and that business is thriving now. It's doing really well.
Okay. You've said many businesses fail not because of the model, but because of cost control.
Yes, I've said
Was
that.
there a personal belief about growth or execution you had to abandon to succeed?
Yes. And I think, so we've come from, if you look at kind of tech investing, we've come out of a period, and I think it's a good thing, this notion of grow at all costs, where profitability takes a backseat to growth, where companies are valued on the basis of their year-on-year growth. Of their top-line revenues, regardless of what's happening inside the income statement. Investors will just value a business on the basis of how many rides, whatever rideshare company is taking, or how much you're trading, or how much you're selling. And you could be doing all of that at a loss, and the company would still see high valuations. I think I firmly am in the camp of profitability first, not grow at all cost. This is something that has become part and parcel of, I think, myself and my colleagues individually and collectively as yes. So we are very mindful of costs. In fact, we've done this now, I think, for about 2 years, where every month the senior team, not just the CXOs, even the VPs, they will sit once a month, and we will audit all the expenses collectively, together, just transparently, openly. It's one of the quirks, actually, of uLesson culture. And so it's giving everybody this sense that the business is mine.
Okay.
And so you get to question everything. Costs are very strange things. We found that if you don't do this sort of exercise I'm describing periodically, what happens is that strange costs get baked into the income statement, into the operating expenses, and they just become recurring.
Yeah.
And then after a while, it's very hard to address them. So in doing this, it's almost like we do weeding in a garden every month to ask, is that critical? Is that critical? And so what that has meant is that both, uLesson Group, which is comprised of uLesson and MIVA, we've managed to really grow while managing costs. In fact, for the most part now, the costs have just remained flat while we've just seen growth. So, yeah, I think with experience has shown me that it's very, very important. It's not just about, revenue. And thankfully, investors are starting to see the world like that also.
So between Konga days and building uLesson and MIVA University, was there a point when you seriously considered walking away from entrepreneurship? What made you stay?
Yes, I did. I think that thought crosses a lot of entrepreneurs' minds.
So what made you stay?
I have a thesis, a belief that Nigeria will be ascendant in my lifetime. I firmly believe this. I believe that Nigeria will be ascendant, culturally, which we're seeing with the music, militarily even, but I think with regards to this conversation, economically. And so I refuse to not be a participant in that ascendant Nigeria. So in many ways, maybe many of us started earlier than we should have. Maybe the reforms should have come earlier. But you cannot ignore this country. No, and to be from here, I think, is an incredible privilege. We will do well, I think, over time. It just depends on whether we'll grow at an exceedingly fast rate or just slowly. But this remains one of the last great economic opportunities in the world.
Sure.
And so I wanted to participate in that. And then it's also one of the environments where you can do something commercial that provides, all of the, financial return, financial independence, all those things I spoke about before, but also really impact. And so, there was similar to, they didn't call it podcast back then, but I did this interview with a gentleman called Opeyemi Agbaje a long time ago when I was at Konga. And he asked me this question. He said, if you were not doing this, or maybe I'm paraphrasing, if you're not doing this, what would you be doing? And I said, I would be doing an online university. And this was in, I think that interview was in 2012 or 13. And so it's something that I've held on to for a long time. I think wanting to impact my society, wanting to build something is just too strong a desire that even if, that whatever I was feeling in that break of saying, is this worth it? And should I just, move to another country, go join one of these large tech companies and be a senior executive or do something like that? I don't know, all kinds of thoughts cross your mind. And I don't judge people who do that at all. I know a lot of Nigerians have left and we've lost a lot of talent, and I understand it completely. But for me, this is the only path in life.
So, uLesson was founded just months before COVID. How did you adapt your business model to survive and even grow during that period?
During COVID?
Yeah.
COVID was actually our tailwind. COVID fueled, and I didn't anticipate COVID. So, but we were building this company in 2018, and then, and we were building the library. I think we had finished SS1 and SS2, the full library of, this is what we started out with secondary school curriculum. This company now that spans, primary to university to professional training. We started out with SS1 and SS2, and then COVID struck. The operational challenge was, how do we continue building the library while we couldn't, the social distancing and all of that. And so we had to come up with some really interesting ways in Jos. So we rented houses across Jos. It's just an anecdote. And the team could stay there very comfortably, and then, rooms were set up as studios so they could, social distance, and the library kept being built. But on the demand side, because of COVID and schools closed, demand took off. This is what happened. And, so we started building 2018, and of course, COVID. 2019. And so we just launched into a wind that just lifted us. Totally, fortuitous, didn't plan it, luck, a divine, whatever you choose to call it.
So that's for uLesson.
Yes.
What about MIVA? What were the, challenges? Or there are no challenges, everything just went smoothly?
No, MIVA came, so MIVA was connected to COVID indirectly.
Okay.
I'll explain. So, in and of itself, building it was tough. It was difficult, but we had learned so much from uLesson.
Yes.
That it made it a bit, easier than if we were a fresh player. But I think the reason that the regulator, which is a very conservative regulator, the National Universities Commission, which they should be, the reason they've been thinking about private open distance learning for a while, online universities. But I think, in fact, what they've told me is what tipped their opinion finally as a commission was the experience with COVID. Yeah, so when COVID happened and universities also had to go through this. Yes, the world shifted. And so that created the environment for us to receive this license. So indirectly, MIVA benefited from that, the pandemic. Yeah.
Well, so still speaking about MIVA, but starting, what were some of the challenges, or what were some of the drawbacks that you had to push through to be able to build MIVA up to this point? Like you said, it's still growing.
Yes.
But what were some of those things that you had to push through to get to where you were, outside of it being, born during COVID or giving birth during COVID?
Yes. So, there have been many open universities.
Yes.
But they've gone through, you've got UNISA. I don't know if you know UNISA in South Africa, which is, I think, the biggest one on the continent presently. And There are a bunch of them, and sometimes they use TV and video. Of course, there's National Open University,
Yes.
which relied a lot on PDFs and documents. But the medium has changed. What do I mean? The medium has changed. We've gone from TV, radio, to internet. And so, MIVA, we were going to build digital first, internet first. So what does that mean? And that created a whole lot of challenges. Where will we find the faculty to create the academic content and instruction?
Mm-hmm.
How do we create it? How do we structure our agreements with this faculty for the content, for the rights, for compensation? We as a team, we had to innovate a lot of these things. How do we fly faculty in as adjunct from around the country? Find the best resources to build this. And then operationally, one of the things that one of the challenges with distance learning is that the student can feel disconnected.
Yes.
The learner can feel disconnected. But for us from the beginning, we thought we want to have a very strong sense of community in this. And so we were very deliberate about doing many things. Some of them are proprietary, but others, we have success advisors. Every student feels a connection. We encourage and foster a sense of community amongst the students themselves. So that was one thing. And then, of course, with you're trying to introduce a new product, a new brand in education, which requires a great deal of trust. To picking a university is akin, I'm not saying it's exactly similar, but it's akin to getting married.
Sure.
It's not like a shirt that you buy and if you don't like it, there are all kinds of implications to picking a university. And so that was also a very big challenge that required a lot of communication.
I think generally education, putting your child, even if it's not university, even if it's high school, even if it's primary school,
yes,
it's you have to, because if you don't put them in the right place, they won't get the kind of
the implications are huge.
The implications are huge.
Yes, it's not small implications. It's not like picking what you have for breakfast and then deciding. So there were a lot of operational challenges, but the team, like I said, we had gone through uLesson already and we're really geared for this. We're very excited about it. We received the license in April 2023. And we accepted students in September.
Wow.
Yes. We actually got this university off the ground in about 6 months or so. And I think that's instructive. If there's one message I think I want to pass to just, policymakers, is that these digital technologies, first internet, and of course the devices, the hardware side, and then increasingly generative AI, this galaxy of technologies, they are incredibly powerful and they have huge implications for what we can do in education and healthcare, even healthcare. Some of the answers to questions that we think are so difficult, they are right there in front of us. In my personal experience and in the experience of the MIVA students and my colleagues, we've seen this. It works really well. Even the fact that we've able to launch so quickly and then grow so rapidly. I'm sure ultimately policymakers will pay attention. They already are, but I think maybe it's when we pass 100,000 students or something that then they really, really will pay attention.
So with your track record, I imagine there are pitches, hires, or expansion you've delayed, saying no to. What's one big no you've been postponing and why?
That's a very good question. The answer is steeped in strategy. One big one has been regional expansion.
Regional, okay.
Regional expansion, or leaving Nigeria to go elsewhere.
Okay.
Yeah, we tried with uLesson with the primary and secondary school segment a few times, where we just, put our toes in Ghana and did one or two things, but we never fully committed, and a lot of it was driven by the fact that uLesson itself was still finding its footing. It was going through those COVID changes and COVID on, COVID off situation. But MIVA just shows such strength and momentum, and it's given us so much confidence that finally we're not putting that off. We as a company, as a board, as a senior management team, we're committed to Nigeria +1. So we're going to go to one more country, hopefully before the end of this year. We're pursuing the licensing right now. I'm very excited about it. We're now 7 years old before we left Nigeria. Yeah, so we took our time.
Yes.
I look back, MIVA doesn't even, uLesson Group doesn't feel like 7 years old. It feels much young. But 7 years have gone by. And so we hopefully will be licensed in an additional African country for an online university. And that's going to open us up to all kinds of exciting new opportunities and challenges.
Sure.
A lot of challenges. But we're looking forward to it.
So when the numbers look bleak, how do you balance the optimism needed to inspire a team with the realism needed to make tough calls?
I definitely lean on the realism. I lean on the realism. I think if you are, as a leader, if numbers are bleak and you are trying to whitewash it, in effect be deceptive, I think your team members will see it. They will see it. They see beyond the words. And I think entrepreneurs and senior team members, certainly the ones I work with at uLesson Group, they are the most optimistic people. They are naturally optimistic. And so what they ask for is not somebody to whitewash. Instead, it's to be able to distill all the data and present it to them. And so that's what I spend a lot of my time doing. A lot. I mean, we knew, I had read and understood enough of the policy direction of the candidates leading into the last presidential elections to know what was going to happen. And then I broadly understood what the macroeconomic implications of what they were planning to do would be. Because other countries, India, Brazil, have gone through. Yeah, so you just kind of have to look at what others have gone through. And so I knew that we were going to see inflation. I wouldn't call it hyperinflation, but very high inflation. I knew discretionary income was going to go away, that there would be all kinds of pressure. And so we had to make some very, very tough decisions to kind of prepare ourselves for that. And underinvest on the primary school, secondary school side, and then, overinvest on the tertiary side. And so, but back to your question, I think to be able to come to a team then and say, okay, here's what I think will happen. And then it happens. It gives them some confidence in the leaders. You're not totally wrong. If you're wrong, it's a bit harder. But you don't have to sell. I didn't have to sell them on optimism. It's just to say, here's what will happen. Here are the numbers. Our primary school, secondary school segment is suffering right now. We have to find a way out. Here are the implications of that. We have to watch every expense. We have to stop hiring. We have to be much more efficient to get through this lean period. But I expect that by 2025, and I think I told my colleagues this will be out of the woods, the economy will start to recover. And that's what we're saying. So even the primary, secondary school segment is growing. Just naturally on its own.
And then MIVA is...
that one is a rocket ship. But that period was tough. It was tough. I think I rely a lot on data. And I read voracious, I read a lot.
Very important.
Yes, and so that gives you, nobody really has a crystal ball. Those just happen from just taking in the data.
Yes.
And so that helped us anticipate what will happen, make strategic decisions in preparation for it. Mm-hmm. And then even now, when folks are still holding back, in 2025, we're in Q3 yet? Yes. Holding back, we're investing. Yes, now we are putting, we're stepping on the accelerator and investing. Because again, we have a sense of where we think the country is going, yeah.
So, Imagine the next 5 years of your life as a book chapter. What's the title and what's the story arc?
The next 5 years of my life is a book chapter.
What's the title and what's the story arc?
That's a good question. You know how you talked about the crossroads before, so there are two potential titles.
Okay.
I'll just speak transparently. One, I would expect that in the short term, somebody else will probably take the reins of this company, and I'll move to the board or something of uLesson Group, in some capacity on the board of directors. And I have team members that are incredibly capable, on many dimensions more capable than me. So, what would I do next? The title of that chapter will either be heavy industry or public service. One of the two. I'm not sure. Or maybe both.
And what will the story arc be about?
Oh, you ask good questions. The story arc, first of all, it will be different from previous arcs in the sense that it will be even more long-term, not technology. So this would be a departure from everything I've done for 20 years. Yes, at least not directly technology. So, there are other things to do, other adventures to be had, other ways to grow Nigeria. So not technology. Selfless on some level. I think there will be a service component. I think some of the greatest, public services, of course, very honorable, and somebody that I greatly respect, a public servant that served at the highest levels of government and known to most people, but I won't mention his name. Said, service to country, service to God.
Yeah, service to country, service.
Yes, and so it's but even the industrialists, those that have built our biggest banks and our refineries, and the Dangote refineries, these are incredible acts of service also. Yeah, so there'll be a component to that component to the arc. I think that Nigeria, and there are early indications to suggest inflation is trending down. The stock market is performing incredibly well.
Sure.
Again, I want to be very sensitive to say I know a lot of those macros don't mean a lot to man on the street, but if you follow sort of case studies of other countries that have gone through similar things, the stock markets and the corporations do well before the individuals do well. But ultimately, it sweeps through.
It sweeps down.
Yes. So, but I think we've gone through reforms very similar to what India went through.
Okay.
I think Nigeria is entering a period of sustained long-term economic growth. Okay. There are a few things that are still brakes on that, like security is a big one.
I agree.
Yes, but in terms of the economic side of things, I think we've done pretty much the majority of what I think needs to be done. So I think that creates an incredible opportunity for import substitution, for industrialization, for using Nigeria's God-given gifts in energy, cheap energy, in solid minerals that, and not even the high value, the gypsum and the kaolin and the feldspar and the things needed to make all kinds of interesting things that we're importing right now. These are just gifts we have, many of which are just lying fallow. Opportunities on the industrial side. We've had some very large companies already born out of here, Olam and some of these corporations that are just incredible. But I think you're going to see even more incredible companies being born in the agricultures, on the agriculture side. I think all of these things are heavy industry. This is long-term investment, low margin, heavy stuff, built for 1, 2, 3 years before you even produce your first product. Akin to what Dangote did with the refinery. I mean, that project,
took a while.
Yeah, it took a while. It's very similar kind of thing. So I think those would be kind of the arcs if God-given, life and limb and health.
So, on a lighter note, what hidden talent, something that you have that people don't really know about, or don't talk about, what hidden talent do you feel, okay, people don't know that Sim Shagaya does this, like a hidden talent. I don't know what the talent is, you're the one that knows is you. And then, what do you do when you are not being Sim Shagaya, when you are not, running MIVA University or running uLesson Group or looking for the next entrepreneurial adventure? What do you do for fun? What do you do to relax? And then what is that hidden talent that you have? And this is on the lighter note before we end.
Okay. So it's not related to business or strategy?
No, not related to business.
Okay.
We've been talking serious. So
yes.
Before we end, at least we need to take it down a notch.
Yes. Okay, makes sense. Let's take it down a notch. So I'll take it way down. So it turns out that I'm actually a really good cook.
Oh, wow.
I'm a really, really good cook. And baking specifically. Cooking generally, I'm good. But baking
specifically.
I make some of the best cakes in Abuja. That's what I've been told. Not just by my wife. I think she has to say that. But friends who are more direct and more honest, more critical, have said that.
Yes. I agree with them. I totally agree. Even I've not tasted anything, but if your friends who are critical tell you something,
yes,
trust me, they are being honest.
Yeah, it turns out that I'm actually, and I discovered this much later in life. So I enjoy cooking. I'm quite good at it. And what do I do to
when you're not?
I don't know if I think about. I want to be honest, because even when it's just the nature of my life and who I am. Even if I'm not working, I'm just reading and reading and reading, and it might be things completely unrelated to education, something completely off. Like right now, for example, another public figure. Also served highest levels of course, somebody I just have incredible respect for, served at the highest levels of this country. Was so kind. He sent me a whole stack of books. I can show them to you. Like about 9 books on Awolowo, and his story, his early story, his writings, and this was born out of a conversation we were having about federalism and all of that. So, if I'm not working, I'm trying to get through that stack of books right now. So I really enjoy reading, and I don't play sports per se. I mean, my wife and I walk a lot and things like that.
Walking is beautiful.
Yes, it's good. And Abuja is a very walkable city. It makes it easy to build a hobby and habit of walking.
So, to wrap things up now, we have come to the end. I'm to ask the last question. And I always like this question because the question, when I've asked people this question, the kind of answers I get are quite interesting.
Okay.
So the question is, looking back at your early startups and where you are now, what's one piece of advice you wish somebody had whispered in your ear before you started? Before you started any of them, what was one advice you wish that somebody had whispered earlier in your ear to avoid you making maybe some of the mistakes you made or some of the directions you should have taken?
I think do not second guess my instincts as much as I did as a younger person.
Do not second guess your instincts.
Yes, especially when, or rather, to not allow others cause me to second guess my instincts, especially when the others are not people that have the information you have. Take Konga, for example. It was a very powerful business, growing very fast, but we held a lot of the inventory ourselves, and we held a lot of the infrastructure. I'm being very simplistic here just for the sake of time, but there's another company in China called Alibaba.
Yes.
Other than digital infrastructure, the servers and computers and things like that, they own nothing. They don't own the bikes, they don't own the warehouses, they don't own the inventory, they don't own one phone in one warehouse They own nothing. Their job was to build software. And so, again, I'm being simplistic, but I had this instinct very early that we should not have carried all that heavy infrastructure, that instead Nigerians had it and were ready. It will have taken them some time. God is good, gig logistics as it's called now. Now, delivering something from Lagos to Jos in 2025 in 24 hours is trivial. It's happening. It wasn't the case when we started Konga, but we should have given the logistics players time to develop.
Sure.
The fashion entrepreneur in Lekki probably would have been a better merchandiser of fashion and what to sell than the team at Konga ever could have been. And I can just go on and on and on. So there are all these players with latent skill. It was in the market. And what the market needed was a coordinator and an owner and manager of digital infrastructure. And I had this instinct, and I talked to the board about it, but I think I had so much respect and regard for their own experience, which was born of other countries, primarily Western markets, that I put my own instinct away. And I think if we had operated as an asset-light digital infrastructure platform, the story would have been very different. Very different. We would have weathered 2015 better. Because the margins would have been better. The burn rate of resources was much lower with that kind of business, and it would have been a very, very different story. So that would be my piece of advice. I think that's the only thing that comes to mind, is that it's one thing to take advice from people who you genuinely believe have a depth of experience in something, but I think let me sum it up like this: be careful who you take advice from. Let me sum it up like that.
Okay. So at this juncture, I'd like to say that I'm happy to have met you in person.
Thank you.
And
that's very kind.
Meeting you has, for me, I learn a lot, especially when you listen to people who you admire and respect because of the kind of person they are.
Thank you.
And listening to you, I've learned so much. And you're one person that I always like to have a conversation with. Yeah. And if you leave
we should do it again.
If you leave
maybe when I'm 60, we'll see how those chapters turn.
And if you leave me, we can sit down here all day and just be talking. That's just the honest truth. But at this juncture, we will, draw the curtain. Maybe we can converse when the lights are off and the cameras are off, and then we can continue our conversation.
No problem.
So, well, as you can see, we've come to the end. I would like to say thank you to Sim Shagaya for, having the, courtesy of having us here in his lovely home, and, welcoming us and bringing Triumph Against Odds all the way to Abuja. So at this juncture, we would like to say, as we always say in Triumph Against Odds, be resilient, never give up. Thank you.